auction, 50/50 tickets and everything else going on during the fashion show. And actually a girl from High Prairie won the first recycled fashion show with her. I think it was, at that time we still had plastic grocery bags. She had made a kind of a skirt dress thing out of these, and it's very cute. You have a picture of her? Yeah, there she is, the winner. Solar night for this. In the group photo, she's kind of at the back. She's got some white bows on her shoes. That's how you can recognize her. Yeah, so we wanted to provide this for the Boreal Center. However, at the last minute after purchasing the equipment, we found out that as a charity, we can't donate to government. It's a government facility in Western Slave Lake Provincial Park. So then we had to store the equipment for a year, search out a new location that could accept charitable contributions, and that turned out to be the swimming pool. Again, in Slave Lake, we tried for the Kimuan Bird Walk as well because it's bird related, but they weren't sure if they could accommodate it. So it went to the pool. But at the same time, Alberta Parks did look at all of our proposals. We did a request for proposals, and I think we got 9, and they picked a different proposal. So in a way, we got 2 solar installations for the price of 1 because they did go ahead and buy 1 themselves. So yeah, that solar install is saving lots of money at the pool. And yeah, here we have the little dinky skateboard park light that we originally got, but it was very popular. We found that the skateboarders were even shoveling snow out of the skateboard park in the spring so they could use it right away because it was lit. Yeah, so it does make a difference for physical activity for youth in the area. And so we want to keep it going. We accepted a quote from ATS Traffic. They're the group that did all of the nightlights in Joussard. So that the whole hamlet is solar night lit, I guess we could say. And they work fantastic. And this is a really good quality light, but it is $17,000. So we did our original fundraising efforts and reached out to some local companies early this year. And I'm sorry to say that we did not get a great response yet. So we're here to ask for your help and ideas. And one idea I had was if there's a local youth group, we'd just love to work with them. Maybe if they don't want to do the recycled fashion show, which could be a fun thing, they might have some other ideas, and we'd be glad to pitch in and help. We've got lots of local memberships still in the High Prairie area. So that was one thought. And then we wondered if there were local grants we could apply for, or if there's a way to pitch to the business community as a whole in the town of High Prairie. If there's a town newsletter or a town, something where we could do an article about this project. After all, we do issue charitable tax receipts for donations, so you get something back for it. We would put everyone's names on the sign at the skateboard park. So this is kind of an update. I've been in touch with your CAO and to try and devise the program, and we think it. I've even had ATS Traffic come and look at the site, and they've got some ideas for what they call a double header. So it would be 2 heads coming off the wall instead of a street light structure. But it's hard to move forward when we don't have the funding. So that's where we're standing at today. And that's why I'm here to introduce myself and introduce the project to your honors, the new mayor and council, and congratulations on the recent election. And yeah, see if you have any ideas for us for moving this project forward.
Thank you. I just want to clarify something before we go back. You you said that you were not allowed to donate to government.
We were not allowed to donate to the Alberta government, the provincial government. Yes, municipalities, yeah, municipalities are an approved designated donor.
And then we'll start. Councillor Schulter.
The total cost is $17,000 and we've raised $2,000. And REAC would probably be prepared to contribute too, but we'd rather write grants, matching grants. That's what. If you know of any local matching grants, or if you could write a letter of support towards matching grants that we could find, that would be helpful.
Councillor Campbell. Down real quick. Councillor Persky. This is
For the skate park, yeah, that's right. Well, the one that we had in Slave Lake was on a timer, so it didn't go the whole time. It was on, from dusk, because that's when it starts getting dangerous. I think it was on till 10 or something, and then it goes off and comes back on at 6, something like that. Yeah. That's a great idea. No, I have not. And I will look forward to contacting her. Yeah. Well, I'm perfectly willing to review that with your rec director and see, and ATS traffic, and see if there's a way to angle the 2-header, as they called it, to cover the basketball courts. Yes, I believe so. That's what's right behind. It's to the west of the skate park. Yeah, ideally we'd light up the whole area within those time frames, of course.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you for your presentation. I can assure you that we would not respond to your request until you met with our presentation. We're not going to act or consider anything without her input into it. It directly affects facilities that she's responsible for.
And she's running them, so I really look forward to connecting.
Please do, and you can collect it. Otherwise, thank you very much for your presentation. Looks very interesting. And fruitful discussions with our recreation.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you. Our next delegate is from STARS Air Ambulance, Linda Curran. I seem to remember you from before, so you know the routine.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to meet all of you as new council, some of you that I have previously worked with over the years. I've been working with your previous councils for almost 18 years. So well versed as far as working with council. For all of you, my name is Glenda Farndon. I am the Senior Municipal Relations Liaison for STARS. Meaning that I do work with all the municipal councils across the entire province of Alberta, as well as into northeastern BC. And so it's my pleasure to bring you an annual update. This will also include a financial request, as your previous 4-year pledges have expired as of this year. So I'll be asking for your continued support of our mission that serves your residents in the area. I will be asking for a 4-year term as well to renew your previous pledges. So, should I go ahead? Well, do you have this? Okay, well, let's start. We'll see what happens with Wendy. So this year, STARS celebrates 40 years of serving Albertans. We have flown more than 65,000 missions in that 40 years as well, and we celebrate partnerships. We have always remained a charitable entity, which means there is no bill to the patient, and that is just absolutely not possible without partnership. As far as Dr. Greg Powell, he is our original founder, and the fact that we, on April 30th, we lost Dr. Powell, and it was very devastating to our team. He was a very exemplary and visionary leader. But we are committed to his vision, which was to provide critical care anywhere. So now we are under the direction of Dr. John Crow. He was previously our Chief Medical Officer for all 6 bases across Western Canada. He is an exemplary critical care physician as well, and has now our President and CEO. We celebrate Kelly Waldron. She was the very first STARS patient. She was a critical newborn twin 40 years ago. She was flown in the original Lions Air ambulance that you see in the bottom photo there. When we very first started with volunteer physicians. Over the years, we've had the VK-117, which had served us well for 37 years. And now we have a complete brand new fleet that serves Western Canada, a fleet of H-145s, 10 helicopters in total. And we've completed the campaign, so all 10 helicopters are paid for as we move forward. Currently, financially, so we do have a 10-year affiliation agreement in place. We're in year number 3 of this 10-year affiliation agreement with Alberta Health Services for block funding of $15 million per year. So with that, that means that covers about 41% of our operational budget. Currently, the new numbers, because of increasing costs, increasing mission volume, as well as fuel, medical supplies, everything that's entailed in taking care of a patient, that it is now $12.2 million per base for 3 bases in Alberta, $36.6 million operational costs per year. We fundraise 59%. So that is a significant amount, and our municipalities are a huge part of the support that helps to provide the sustainability. So on this municipal map here now showing, you'll see the different color variations for all the municipalities. Currently, we have 95% of Alberta is supporting, 75%, which would entail the teal and navy blue areas, are regional leaders, meaning they are giving at a minimum $2 per capita up to $90 per capita and everything in between. We also have welcomed Northern BC. They have been also a supporter for the last 18 years, and they are also a regional leader or a provincial leader. 9 provincial leaders, meaning that they are represented with their logos on the helicopter. They have reached either a $500,000 threshold or over $1 million in cumulative support over the years. So very much continuing to work together on the sustainability piece of what municipalities are providing. Collectively, everyone together and putting something in each year is about $2.4 million currently of that 59% that we must fundraise. So it is significant, and the partnership is of immense value. We work with all chain of survival partners. The fire departments are, the fire departments, first responders, search and rescue, RCMP, peace officers, everyone. They are all helping us to make sure that everyone is safe, and also helping us to make sure that we can land safely and get to the patient that is in dire need of critical care. We also work very closely with Ground EMS, fixed wing hospitals, as well as all of your local medical professionals. We have very complex locations that sometimes that we have to land, and sometimes we do not have the advantage of the chain of survival partners to help us. Sometimes we are the only opportunity, the only option in order to reach a patient. These photos that you see are all from the Grand Prairie base serving the northern region. We also do rendezvous with fixed wing as well as ground ambulance. Again, sometimes the patient may be going south in a hurry and we have to rendezvous at key locations in order to get that patient. You got to remember that we have the critical care ICU environment in the hospital. We have highly specialized medical equipment. We have blood on board. We have the new massive hemorrhage protocol on board. Lots of different things that we can bring the ICU environment right to the scene of an accident on the side of the road. This is to show you a 15-year overview of missions within Big Lakes County. So 608 total STARS missions flown in that 15-year overview. When we look at High Prairie specifically for your critical interfacility transfers at your hospital, this also includes those where they may have been taken by ground ambulance to the nearest hospital, the High Prairie Hospital, but because they are critical, then STARS is called to intervene and get these patients to tertiary care. So 357 total missions in this 15-year overview specific to High Prairie for critical transfers, as well as any scene calls, as well as search and rescue that's been in your immediate town area. For this year so far, within Big Lakes County for 2025, 44 missions to date. 24 were critical interfacility transfers, 22 were from the High Prairie Hospital, and 2 were from Swan Hills Hospital, and then 20 scene calls as well. This is information that's specific to residents that live within Big Lakes County boundaries. So you'll see the resident communities listed, 296 residents have been flown. 159 of those residents were actual High Prairie residents. 179 of these patients were picked up in High Prairie, and 117 residents were flown from 33 other locations across Alberta. So this is represented by the red dots you see on the map. You see the blue outline for Big Lakes County boundaries, but all the red dots everywhere else. These are where these residents were at the time they needed STARS. So that is a key aspect of the value of our partnership. Your residents have access to STARS all across Western Canada, where we have 6 bases in 3 provinces, and then also serving Eastern, Northeastern, and Southeastern BC as well. The hemorrhage control that I spoke about. So we have seen so many cases now of very high risk bleeding out patients, especially in trauma. So we have increased from carrying 2 units of universal blood now on board. We've done this for more than 10 years. We are very much an innovative leader in the fact of bringing blood on board. We were the first in North America to do this. We've now increased from 2 units of blood to 4 units of blood that we carry on board. And now this again was the first in Canada that we brought forward with the hemorrhage control medication. So when we're dealing with a very high risk bleeding out patient, after we apply the first 2 units of blood, and then we can apply the fibrinogen, which is hemorrhage control. It allows these types of patients to actually help them to build blood clots. And then we can apply the second 2 units of blood while we're en route to tertiary care. It is a game changer. It is absolutely changing the course of life for these types of very high risk bleeding out patients. And of course, then this is also a key advantage for your hospital. We also provide virtual care consultation. Sometimes the helicopter may be out on another mission. We may not be able to respond physically. It does not mean that we are leaving your community defenseless. We can work directly with your nurses and physicians at the hospital. We have provided many times virtual care consultations. So our transport physicians are in the Emergency Link Center 24/7. So they can be contacted. We can actually, it's just like FaceTime. We can actually work with your doctors and nurses here at your hospital and provide virtual care, provide them medical guidance, provide procedural guidance. They don't intubate a patient every day like we do. So we can provide procedural guidance as well. So this is, again, a game changer and an advancement in rural healthcare, being able to bring that opportunity for critical care virtually as well. There is an international critical care simulation competition. It's a very rigorous, high-intensity competition. This is across the world. There are people in EMS circumstances and services. They come to this competition each year to compete against each other. We have always had our own internal competition to allow one team of 2 across all 6 bases to represent STARS internationally each year at this very competitive competition. We have competed 23 years straight, and we have been top 3 in the world all 23 years. This year, once again, our team took first place. This marks the 9th time as well that STARS has taken first place at a worldwide international competition. We are providing the highest level of critical care for your residents. So in closing, I would like to ask for your kind consideration to continue the support that previous High Prairie councils have provided each year on a 4-year term. Previously, we had, for the last 2 terms, I believe it was at $5,000 fixed rate per year. Mission rate continues to increase. The volume is significant. Currently in this area, you're averaging about 40 plus missions every year. That's significant, hundreds of thousands of dollars in mission costs. We're asking for your continued support. We're asking for a very small, slight increase to $6,000 per year fixed rate for your council term of 4 years. I will continue to provide you financial information. I will continue to come once a year to provide you an overview of anything new and happening at STARS and provide the mission statistics that are pertinent to your community and area. This would also mark that you will continue to be 95% of the province that collectively we are working together to save lives. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much for your inspiring presentation. You've almost made it impossible for us to say no. However, we can't say yes until we have the operating budget. But
Yes.
you're lucky we decided that in 1 month from today, and it would certainly be on. So I'd like to open the floor to the questions and comments from the councillors, and if we could start with Councillor Forsky.
See, there's quite a few coming. Flights. Where do they land?
Well, there's some history there. We used to land with, there was a helipad that was supposed to be in the original site design, which it was. Then at the very last minute, they took it out. So although there is infrastructure all there, only thing they didn't do was pave it. So there's sidewalks going to a grassy spot. There's electrical there. There's everything there,
So it's all the way up.
but there's no helipad. So in 2018, I believe we were contacted because previously we had an exemption granted from Transport Canada to allow us to land on that grassy spot. And we did for almost 2 years while a plan was in place to have a helipad there, to finish paving it and have it there. Then we were contacted by Alberta Health Services to say that we could no longer land there, even though we had the exemption. So we had to comply because, and for whatever reason, we have to land now at the airport. So we have to wait for ground ambulance, which your ground ambulance is very busy. So lots of times they're not available, and we are waiting at the airport for a critical patient, to get a critical patient and bring specialized equipment and blood and things like, so that we're not depleting your hospital's supply of blood as well. But we have to wait for ground ambulance to come get our crew. So this has been challenging, to say the least. No, I can go back and find the email that, kind of, it just outlined, but it was very, within, I think, just a few weeks, we were notified that we would no longer be landing there. So we have continued to reach out. I would love to see an opportunity, maybe that the town and the county, that we could have another meeting, maybe with the health minister, and move things forward to see if there is an opportunity. I know that the county had previously been putting some money away for the helipad, as well as we had been notified by your Heart Foundation as well, that they had been putting some money away towards the helipad. But we can't move forward if we do not have the permission of Alberta Health Services, because it's on their property.
Notes on the absurdity of this situation. Councillor Dunn. No question. Councillor Turner. Councillor Hammond. Deputy Mayor. It's interesting when you've been talking about not being allowed to land there. Are you aware that there was a feasibility study done by someone that I understand is in the possession of Alberta Health Services, and that justifies helicopters not landing at the hospital but at the airport? Are you aware of that? Any study like that?
No, I'm not currently. Like, I know there's been other hospitals that had feasibility studies done in order to determine whether or not, they would build a helipad. I have worked with many communities across the province now that even if they did not have the permission of Alberta Health Services to put a helipad in, that if they had land that was owned by the town that was co-located to the hospital, that they have built their helipad, and it was an undertaking between the town and the county. 2015, for example, we worked with the county and the town of Valley View, MD of Greenview, and the Sturgeon Lake Band, and a helipad was built at the Valley View. So that's been more than 10 years, right at 10 years. And Alberta Health Services was a part of that project. They paid for the site and design. There are comparative other communities across the province that are, still working with Alberta Health Services for helipads. Alberta Health Services paid for helipad at Grand Cache. And of course they have very mitigating circumstances, that their airport was closed and there was no fixed wing, and we were basically the only option other than ground, and it's a very isolated area. But they did pay for that helipad to be put in. So I don't know how it's determined. There is 3 criteria regarding helipads for Alberta Health Services, and you must meet these 3 criteria for them to consider that there would be a helipad at a certain hospital. They previously, I don't know if it's still in place because there's been many changes now. So they used to have a helipad committee as well, which STARS had a representative on that committee. I believe that that hasn't gone forward now with many of the new changes. But the three criteria were the fact that you had to have, you had to be more than 45 minutes away from tertiary care, which you are. You have to be more than 15-minute drive one way from the airport. And you have to have more than 10 critical interfacility transfers per year, which you do. High Prairie, for the northern base that's out of Grand Prairie, High Prairie is the top community, the top hospital that we serve across the entire northern region. Your hospital is the top one that we serve. And it doesn't have a helipad.
It's interesting because I'm contacted by the ladies auxiliary. They very much, of course, want to help that. As do many other people in the community. They have been referenced this feasibility study, but no one can find it. Reportedly, the feasibility study, and I have no evidence for it. So I'm saying something that I'm risking its truth. But apparently, the feasibility study came to the conclusion that fixed wing into the High Prairie Airport was faster and therefore a better service. But as you say, the crucial link up is with that ambulance. And as you said, our ambulances are very busy. It's not always possible to have a convenient and timely link. And therefore, if you landed at the hospital, you would not need that link.
And
So that's what the ladies auxiliary are trying to nail down, and they've asked me if I could help them locate this study. But the study doesn't seem to exist anywhere where someone can pull it off the shelf. And so I was very much looking forward to your presentation in order to ask you if you had seen any study. But from what you said, it would appear that we should be eligible for a helipad.
in the interest of patient care, I think that, in this day and age, helipads are a must for infrastructure on a 5 or 10-year plan as we plan for the future for our children and grandchildren. Been working together between yourselves and the county with previous councils since 2008 to try and have a helipad. And then, of course, you were getting a new hospital, which I believe that opened in 2017. And so, we still had other opportunities. So a couple of years there that we had that exemption from Transport Canada. We were landing at the hospital, and then that was dissolved. And so I am not aware of this study. It's really a challenge when you're dealing with critical patients. Yes, I'm not challenging in any way that fixed wing can be faster for many, many patients to go from High Prairie to Edmonton. Also taking into account, though, there is a chart of call for Alberta Health Services and ourselves that determine, and that's what our transport physicians and all emergency physicians will go by as to the fastest mode of transport, but it also takes into account any additional transfers, any ground transfer that has to happen, like, once fixed wing lands at the international airport, there has to be a ground transfer to one of the local hospitals. So that has to all be taken into account of the actual total time out of hospital for that patient before they actually arrive. For a significant subset of patients that we can serve by being able to land at your hospital, not always taking them to Edmonton, maybe back to Grand Prairie for stabilization. Maybe a lot more can be done that way. Having a helipad also, when you're dealing with critical patients and trauma patients, intubated patients, you want to mitigate as minimum of patient movement as you possibly can, especially when you're dealing with inclement weather, you're dealing with an intubated patient, something could get dislodged, you have freezing IV lines, you're trying to give blood, all of these different things can be happening. You really have to hone in on the fact of the less patient movement, the better for these types of patients. Being able to land at a helipad, we also alleviate any additional stress on ground ambulance because they can remain available for other calls. We alleviate all the call out charges. You can alleviate the charges for having the RCMP or the fire department have to come out and land us, because when you have a designated helipad, none of that is needed. Nothing is required. We go from A to B, we go to the hospital, get the patient, take them back to Grand Prairie, for example, less patient movements, from a nice warm hospital into a nice warm helicopter and then back to a nice warm helipad at the Grand Prairie Hospital or to Edmonton, if the case may be. We are an additional option as well. Aside from fixed wing, we are additional option. There are a certain subset of patients that require that they may need what STARS can offer. So in this day and age, I just feel that it's something that we really, as Albertans together, that we need to address. There's many other communities throughout central and southern Alberta that all have helipads.
Well, thank you very much.
Advocacy 550 Big Lakes County. And we will be meeting with them to do exchange information with them. So that will come on our list as well. So thank you very much for your presentation. And I hope that in our operating.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your continued partnership. That's, really providing life-saving measures for everyone. And at the same time, we appreciate just your continued discussions. If there's anything we can do as far as, providing additional information or statistics and things to help you, we just want that opportunity to work together in the best interests of patient care. Thank you very much. I did bring you the brand new calendar. So, and this is the latest newsletter, has a lot of the 40-year history of STARS. So it's actually a very, very interesting piece and a set for your fire department. If you would please pass this on to them. Will do. Thank you so much for your time.
Moving on to the public, to the delegation 2.1.4, Murray Henrich, Town of High Prairie Wildfire Mitigation Strategy. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening by now. Just let me start this up. Are you able to see that okay?
Yes,
And can you hear me okay?
yes.
Great. Well, thanks to the fire department for inviting me this evening to present the wildfire mitigation strategy. Wendy advised us today that you have received a copy of the actual document. So I'm going to give you a 30,000 foot overfly of that document, and look forward to your questions when we're complete that. So we're not going to dig down into every page. I think it's somewhere over 100 pages. So like I say, our intent is to give you just an overview at this time. Our team was myself, Murray Heinrich, and my colleague here, Pat Golick, and she'll be talking to you in a couple minutes as well. And we had the opportunity to do a project in the town where we evaluated all of the wildland fuels and the impact on the town. The stakeholders, and we really appreciated all the input from the fire department. So the town of High Prairie as well. We did have a really good session in the fire station where we were able to review all of the policies and guidelines that are being used by the town and by the fire department. We also involved Big Lakes County in that discussion, and of course the wildfire management branch was part of it right from the very start. So this project was initiated and managed by the town, and it was funded entirely by an organization called FRIA, the Forest Resource Improvement Association. So what is a mitigation strategy? Really what we want to do is determine the fire hazard in the town and around the town, and to develop some ways to mitigate the risk of those wildfires. And at the end of the day, we want to give you a guide where you can develop fire smart initiatives inside the town and in the county. But we don't want you to lose, the existing forest environment. In other words, I guess the easy answer to wildfire problems would be to shove it over with a cat and put gravel on top. But that would not be acceptable to your residents. So our objectives going in, we wanted to identify and quantify the wildland-urban interface hazards in the town. We wanted to look at the fire regime. In other words, what is the threat to the town? We also looked at all of the buildings, and we did what's called a fire smart structure and site hazard assessment within the town. And we kind of did those, and I'll get into this a little bit later. We did it in groups. In other words, we didn't do every house, but we looked for commonalities in the areas to identify those assessments. And lastly, we looked at opportunities for future fire smart action to reduce the wildfire threat. So what we did in the strategy, and you'll find it in your book, really it's broken down into these headings. I'm going to touch right now on the hazard and risk assessment, and then Pat is going to move into the remainder of them actually. So our planning area, we wanted to look certainly within the town boundaries, but we also wanted to put a buffer around the town within Big Lakes County. So that was what you see on the screen is the planning area that we utilized. And you can see you can see the creeks, the rivers, the roadways, pipelines, all illustrated on that map. So wildfire is, of course, a frequent occurrence around the town. Human-caused fires amounted to only 7 between 2006 and 2024. There was also 1 lightning fire. But I think what we need to keep our eye on is the major historical fires that have occurred, 1952, 1968, and in 2003, all northwest of High Prairie. Fires generally move to the southeast, is what the data showed. The data is kind of lacking in a way that the only data we have is from forestry. The town or the county don't keep any of that data. However, we talked to all the people involved and we got some just anecdotal information about multiple wildfires that they attend each year. So as you know, that the landscape bubble, in other words, outside of the town on the big picture, primarily it's agriculture. What we do see happening around the town is that those aspen types, deciduous types, are starting to become more mixed wood fuels. In other words, we're starting to see more and more encroachment underneath of coniferous trees. And you'll probably notice that a lot along the creeks and the river. There's mixed pockets of continuous coniferous fuels throughout the area and intermixed, in other words, mixed with fuels. And of course, the location and type of the fuels, the primary factor influencing the wildfire threat. So one of the first jobs we had to do was to identify where those wildfire fuels are. And we did that, and it started to show some interesting things. And this is on the west side of the town. And you can see the river moving through, and you can see that the brown and the green spots are the deciduous, the mixed wood fuels that exist along there. So up in the top corner, you see where the ballpark is, and you can see that the fuels, the mixed wood fuels, are located above it, and then the aspen fuels that are transitioning between the ballpark and the houses on the adjacent road. When we looked at the west side of town, it started to show us some interesting things as well. One area of concern is down by the hospital. You can see where it's aspen and mixed wood and coniferous fuels. And if you drive down that county road, you can see those type of fuels. And then they extend south to the east side of the hospital. You also see it up in the county where you see the coniferous fuels in this north area right along the creek, which then leads into the town. So what it ends up being is that in the springtime, that's the highest hazard within the town and around the town. And you see the green color is noted as being moderate fire hazard. What's driving that primarily is the grass fuels in those areas. The blue is low hazard, and the gray is urban area, so no fuel. So the wind direction is what drives fire direction, and in the case of High Prairie, it's from the south-southeast or the west-southwest for gusting winds as well. So the fuels risk within the town, those deciduous stands which are transitioning with a coniferous understory, so the spruce are coming back underneath. The other risk, of course, is the coniferous fuels and the grass along the water courses. So that's the creek and the river as well. One of the largest risks for homes during wildfire incidents isn't necessarily the actual wildfire, in other words, the impingement of the wildfire on the structure. It primarily is caused by falling embers, falling material into the community. Those embers have the ability then to get into wood piles, dry grass, all those nooks and crannies, and onto the roof. So what we did is we broke the town into three. Unit 1 was to from the highway to the west, and Unit 2 was the highway to the east, and then the surrounding area was Unit 3, which is the area within the county. So what we looked at the roof, the cleanliness, siding material, eaves troughs, the setback from slope, the wood piles and combustibles, the doors and windows, the balconies, the decks, the vegetation around the structures, the surface vegetation, and ladder fuels. Ladder fuels simply being trees that are leaning up that would bring fire up into the treetops. Just of some interest, some site-specific assessments that we identified. Firstly, that the fuels along the river and the drainage east of the ballpark could generate an aggressive fire behavior. So that's that area along the river and then by the ballpark, between the ballpark and the residential dwellings. The other thing we certainly noted is that anything that would happen at West Fraser would have a really big impact on the town. Probably the biggest impact would be smoke if they had a fire, and then the worst one would be if they had a log deck fire where it started producing embers that fall into town. The wildland fuels along the creek and in the vicinity, again, of the healthcare complex, those could also be problematic. The other thing we found is the wood storage area located to the southwest of town. It's all the waste materials, and if that was ignited, again, that could cause concerns. And of course, the other one is the CNR right-of-way, which is, you have a grass ribbon of fuel that goes through the town. So the greatest wildfire threat's going to be in the spring when the grass is dry. There is potential for fires in the coniferous fuels in the grass, particularly along the watercourse and the hospital. But when we do the overall look at the town of High Prairie and the county surrounding, we did come up with a wildfire risk as being low. However, right adjacent to the watercourses, we would probably classify as low to moderate. And there's our assessment table of the 3 units. And again, all of being low. I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague Pat, and she's going to walk you through the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you, Marie. So now that we've identified some areas of concern, our attention turns to what can we do about it. And certainly one of the things is public education, educating people about fire smart principles and what the benefit would be to them of making sure that their homes and their yards are fire smart compliant. And we need landowners to recognize hazards and take action on their own. And they need information on the importance of managing vegetation. So there's tons of material available from Fire Smart Canada that would help them to do that. So what does the municipality need to do? Consider some fuel modification projects in areas that we identify, and I'll get into that in a bit. Encourage local agencies and homeowners to consider fire smart initiatives. And we've noticed that the grass along the roadways and whatnot was mowed. This is great. They need to be regularly mowed. Any area that's frequented by people and that has grass. And the town is doing a great job of that at this point. And emphasize fire smart actions for homes that are vulnerable. So when we look at vegetation management, in Fire Smart, we have what is known as the home ignition zone, and the immediate zone is 0 to 1.5 meters from the home, and there should be no fuels there at all. The intermediate zone goes out to 10 meters, and extended zone out to 30 meters. So the goal of managing vegetation is to reduce the intensity and the rate of spread. So we can remove the fuel, we can reduce it by thinning out trees rather than knocking them all down, or we can convert to less flammable species like aspen or some other kind of deciduous tree that is less likely to burn. A lot of this, again, comes down to individual homeowners. So what we looked at for vegetation management, you can see on this map, we've identified some areas where some kind of vegetation management could be done that would certainly help. And that could be getting the dead and down fuels out of there, because they will increase the intensity of a fire, reducing the density of trees, just thinning them out so they're not the crowns aren't touching each other. And the areas you can see, we've got 3 areas, 1, 2, and 3 are up by the ball diamonds. There's quite a bit of trees up there, and we know that that's a heavily used area. There's lots of people coming and going, lots of opportunity for fire starts. The areas 4 and 5 are along the drainages, and then the other one, some other small ones along the highway, and then the bigger ones are again out by the healthcare center. Some of it's on private land in the county. That 7.9 hectare, number 7, is outside the town, but it certainly could impact the healthcare facility if it were to have a wildfire. So for development, I did have a look at the municipal development plan and your land use bylaw, and there are ways to make some changes when the land use bylaws are being written that can help to incorporate fire smart principles into planning, like right off the get-go. So we're recommending that future developments should have controls on combustible roofing materials. And a lot of municipalities do that by developing architectural guidelines and design. And that doesn't mean saying you have to have a fancy foyer or whatever. It means things like non-combustible roofs. We don't want people having cedar shakes on their roofs, which some municipalities still allow. Any access that's going to a new development should be developed in conformance with NFPA standard 1141, which is now incorporated. NFPA 1140 took a bunch of previous standards and amalgamated them into one. Treed parks and municipal reserves should be considered for vegetation management, and those are some of the areas that we identified on the map that we just looked at. And all future developments should consider standards within NFPA standard on water supplies for suburban and rural firefighting, and that's to make sure that we have enough water available. Legislation, as I said, I did read the municipal development plan. It was written in 2016. So when it is revised, it should include a section that includes goals, objectives, and policies specifically related to fire smart development. And that just brings the topic to the forefront. So people are thinking of that right off the bat before they start doing a new development or breaking ground on a new project. And this helps to set the stage for the land use bylaw by identifying building materials, fuel breaks, access, these kind of things right off the rip when you're starting a new development. Other things for the bylaw that could be included are just statements like firewood, building materials, other combustibles should be at least 10 meters from main buildings. And we know this, again, as Murray mentioned, if embers get into a wood pile and the wood pile's sitting right next to your back door, which is where obviously we would like to have it, it can be not a good thing for the fire. Include a definition and standards for fire pits. Again, fire pits should be located away from the dwelling. It should have a non-combustible material around it to reduce the opportunity for a ground fire. Decks and porches that are less than 2 meters above the ground should be sheathed from the floor level to the ground with a fire-resistant material. Again, we find that under the deck is a great place to stash stuff, whether it be plastic lawn chairs or firewood or whatever. And in the event of a fire, when embers are falling and they fall and they collect underneath the deck, then that material starts to burn and the fire proceeds from there. And as I already mentioned, the non-combustible area within 1.5 meters of all structures. So public education involves everybody, all the council, community planners, government, industry. Everybody does need to work together. As I mentioned, FireSmart Canada has a lot of materials that are very informative and easy to read. Interagency cooperation and cross-training is another FireSmart discipline. High Prairie and the county have an intermunicipal collaboration framework, so you guys are already on the way to that. The agencies do need to cooperate to combine their resources in the event of a large event. They can do this by exchanging information, sharing equipment, communications, cross-training, and your municipalities have done this and should continue to do that. Emergency response planning, another FireSmart pillar, allows municipalities to be prepared. Let's plan what could happen and what are we going to do if it does happen. And in major emergencies, it's beyond the capacity of one single organization. So we need to have common language, common practices, and to have an idea of how we're going to get together to manage a big event that has many organizations and many jurisdictions together. And it's better to do that ahead of time. So that's the crux of our presentation. We'd like to thank the Fire Chief, Dave and Trevor, for their efforts, and Big Lakes County Fire Chief Jason Cottingham also helped us, and the staff has been very good in helping us to complete this. And I will turn it back over to Murray.
Thanks, Pat. So yes, so the FireSmart, we've laid it out for you. The solutions are yours at this point in time to implement along with your partners. And once you take a look at the documents and talk to your fire department to be able to develop a way to make the town of High Prairie as a FireSmart community. And that leads us to the end, and we're open to any questions that you may have. And again, thanks to the fire department for all their efforts.
Councilor Hanlon. Councilor Thursday. Councilor Temple. Deputy Mayor. Would you, thank you.
I'm sorry if there was a question, we couldn't hear it.
No, we're not getting that thing up. Can you hear me? Obviously not.
My mic is on.
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Can you can hear me?
I can.
I think it's just,
I just couldn't hear the counselor.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Martinson had a, you're making his presentation.
If you could just restate that.
so he's asking if you are also making this presentation to Big Lakes County councilors?
No, we're not. This the project was initiated by the town, and we certainly talked to the county, but we haven't involved their council.
You can hear, I think it's just off the microphone.
Good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your What we will be doing.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Well, if you can't hear me,
If you just pick up the mic, maybe get closer to the mic.
I'm standing right in front of the mic. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. As I said, we will not just be accepting your report for information because all that does, it just put it in the filing cabinet. We will be referring it then to the appropriate staff, and particularly the fire chief and other staff that the CAO will refer to. And I imagine this will also be on the list of topics for a future planned meeting with Big Lakes County.
Yes, I think that's an appropriate approach.
Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation and good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much and have a good evening.
The end of the scheduled public delegations. Any other delegations? Anybody else coming from the public wishing to make a presentation to us? None? Oh, okay, please come forward, turn the mic on and introduce yourself and your topic.
My name is Lauren McKay. The topic has to do with the budget. Right? I understand that deadline was extended to today, so hopefully I can address that. I'm going to put it out there as a question. Is it too late? No? Okay, good. All right. So firstly, I'd like to welcome you all. I liked seeing the November 4th meeting, how it was run. That's great. It involves the community. It leaves everything open and transparent. So that's really a very, very good start compared to the last council, I guess. With regards to the budget, is it common to have more than one raise within a year for the town employees?
A number of different things. Some will be what you would normally call a specific compensation related to a specific performance appraisal, but there are also general market adjustments and cost of living. All of those are quite separate and different, and they could only happen in meetings that work.
Okay. I guess I'll have to address specifically the CAO. The comments that I saw from the November 4th meeting was indicating that he was going to be getting another raise. Yes, I understand some of it is based on the appraisal, I believe that was the term that you used. One of the concerns that I had is that you're comparing fruit, but it's not necessarily apples to apples, such as I think at that meeting was brought up High Prairie's payment of the CAO versus Slave Lake. Well, Slave Lake is almost 3 times larger than High Prairie is. So I don't see that you can really correlate those two salaries of the CAO together because it is very different. Sorry, excuse me. The other thing is, just give me a moment, I'll just formulate my thought. My understanding is that the CAO has been given 2 raises in the recent past. Am I correct in that or am I wrong? Okay. And then, but again, you are asking for another. No. No. The background?
It's not just. Not only for the CAO.
Yeah, I understood that as well. The per diem or whatever.
Let me interject here. It's not uncommon, in fact, it's fairly standard that a manager would receive some additional compensation on the completion of a probationary period.
Mhm.
And it would also be very standard for somebody to be considered for some increase in compensation on their annual anniversary.
Mhm.
Our current CAO anniversary is in December, it's coming. This evening, on our agenda, we will be making decisions on compensation for employees,
Mhm.
for the CAO, and for council. These will be categorized as market adjustments. Not all employees, depending on the outcome of our discussion later on this evening, will receive additional compensation. We are acting on a report prepared for us by a consultant, and we're focusing purely on the labor market adjustments. We're not looking at cost of living adjustments nor any other negotiated. We're looking at only one of three possible triggers for compensation. And we're looking at it for all three categories. The employees at large, we have 43 employees that gained. Not all of them are eligible for the adjustment, for the CAO and for the mayor and council.
Okay. I was addressing the CAO in particular because the CAO was the one that seems to be having the highest jump, I think. And also because he had received 2 increments before. Additional, there was just immediately prior to the election, there was, if he was to leave, there was something close to $100,000 in compensation.
So what you're making reference to normal severance.
Right.
If a CAO, and that's right, standard practice right across over it, is terminated without cause.
Oh, only if it's without cause. Fair enough.
Only for
Okay.
without cause.
Yeah.
If there is termination for cause, that cause has to be stipulated, and of course is subject to judicial review.
Right.
But severance is something that is fairly standard in the in the range of senior managers, not just at the municipal level, but also at the provincial level. And it's compensation for termination without cause.
Okay, and I thank you for that clarification because that does make a lot of difference. It was not clearly communicated about that stipulation, so that was a concern. I guess ultimately, I'm just trying to address the fact that not only is municipal looking for increases, which ultimately is going to affect the taxpayer, but so is provincial, so is federal. So I'm coming from a citizen that's concerned about any further increases to our taxes, you know, that we're going to have to pay. One of the biggest things as well is that, you know, the government is always looking for more money in one way or another. But the vast majority of people aren't getting that compensation. So our cash flow is not as keeping up with government. Government's always wanting more, and it's always affecting the taxpayer. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from not just for myself, you know, but there's a lot of people that are in dire straits and just keep it conscious that we need to keep things reasonable and as much down without increasing the tax basis as possible. So that's what I'm trying to address.
Thank you. I'm very conscious of all
Yes.
that. But I also need to point out to you that it's not, we won't know until the operating budget itself comes through, how much any of these actions we tonight will in fact have a direct impact on tax base. Because that will also include a whole bunch of discussion around mill rate and assessed property. But it's certainly something that this council keeps in mind. But we are also facing a situation where not all of the finances of the town have kept up with inflation. We have inflationary pressures on us. Okay, and we're hoping that the economic development of the community and the expansion of the potential base of the community and value of that will balance off any increases in expenditure. But we're certainly sensitive to your situation, and if you would like to stay for the remainder of the meeting, you're quite welcome to, because we're going to be discussing the very topics that you are at the heart of your concern.
If there is a way that you can concisely say it, how is it that you're trying to draw in more to help with that base? So how you phrased it was that there would be more people coming in, I guess, and contributing to the taxes. Like how is the town addressing that? Because
The property is annually assessed. We don't know yet how much that assessment is paying.
yeah, no,
And in fact, we don't know that how much that assessment will change until sometime in April. That's when we translate the operating budget into the mill rate. We're at the very beginning of the process.
no, and I understand that. It was your comment about you were hoping to achieve more contribution.
We're obviously hoping assessor will reveal that High Prairie's general assessed property values have gone up. And certainly not have gone down. But we don't know that. We won't know that until the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, no, I know.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have any other-
I don't think you addressed my question, but the problem is that with listening to you and having my own thoughts, I can't quite address what you said specifically to help each other out. So I'll have to leave it.
Councillor Turner?
And spring. And I think.
He answered the question.
Councillor Temple? Questions or comments? No. Councillor Forster? Councillor Hamlin? Councillor Miller? Deputy Mayor? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Oh, Thank you for your time.
Okay. We will have a recess, but we first want to deal with the reason why Pauline is still here. We made an addition to the agenda, see the peace officer's report. This is the second and possibly third reading on the land use bylaw 08-2025. Is there anything else that we need to do to satisfy the requirement? I'm going to turn to the deputy mayor, who knows all things. Okay, so you're moving second reading? You're going to volunteer that? Okay.
Moved by the deputy mayor, the amendment to the land use bylaw 08-2025. Any further discussion or comment on it? We heard from the proponent this earlier tonight. We have had the opinion working with Quincy Municipal Services Agent. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor of second reading. Carried. Is there any reason to hesitate going to third reading? Set this down before we, because this is the beginning of a very long process. They now have to go to a development permit and a building permit. So want to speed it up as much as possible. Hearing no hesitation to go to third reading. Motion for third reading from Councilor Hearing. Any comments on third reading? Anything else? All those in favor of third reading? Carry. Next step is up to you, Pauline. Thank you. And our peace officers have been very, very patient and waiting for us to hear their report. So we'll hear their report and then we'll have a bit of a recess body. Don't be shy, get up here. Introduce yourselves, you're all you to us, and here you to you.
Good evening, council. My name is Brady Snow. I'm a peace officer here with the town of Prairie. Once again, from the last council meeting, I come from Alberta Health Services. I was a peace officer for 3.5 years with them. I was hired back in February of this year to work for the town, and I've been working for the town since. This is my partner, Edwin. I'll let him introduce himself.
Years with yeah, yeah, he's on serious. So, brand new.
We don't have many additions to the report. There was one additional Gaming and Liquor Act arrest made today. Beyond that, we don't have anything additional with the report. As Edwin mentioned, he does have his appointment now, so he is fully certified and trained up. He is now able to operate on his own. We are currently looking at some scheduling options. When we worked at Alberta Health Services, we worked a 4-on, 4-off schedule. We're in talks of trying to make that work right now so that we have basically 8 days a week coverage. We are not at the full 24/7 coverage. Me and Edwin are only 2 people. We cannot do 24/7 coverage every single day of the week with the amount of people that we have. In the future, if we wanted to look at maybe increasing our numbers of peace officers, that could be something that we could look at, but yeah, we're trying to make things work with what we've got.
Okay, I just want to remind council that their report is on page 136. So there's the statistics, and you may have some questions about that. You want to add anything to your report before the councilors launch their questions at you?
There's, like I said, nothing additional that needs to be added to the report, so I don't believe so at this time.
Okay.
So it was mentioned on the report, there was 2 derelict vehicle notices that were sent out this past month. There has been a significant decrease in derelict vehicles since I have been hired back in February. Obviously, we are not at full 100% compliance, but as we observe derelict vehicles and properties that are not in compliance with the bylaw, then we follow up with that and take appropriate actions necessary, whether that be a warning letter, a conversation with the people. I'm very easy and I like to educate rather than go straight to enforcement. So I attempt to educate first, and if that route doesn't work, then I do what I need to ensure compliance. And I believe that Edwin is in agreement with me on that. I would hope so.
Councilor Shonda?
I'm just simply making phone calls and reaching out to agencies and resources that would be willing to accept some of these people who are no longer welcome in places such as the Friendship Center, the Mita Center, and other buildings here in town, resulting in nowhere for anybody to go and sometimes an increase in crime due to that. I'm working with the resources that I'm connecting with. So in Grand Prairie, there's the mobile outreach program that has actually been willing and offered to come out here on their dime to connect some individuals with resources. I mean, there's stipulations along with that as well. They'll be connected with social workers and they have to make an effort as per se, but there has been a lot of outside organizations that are willing to work with us as long as we communicate and talk with them.
We, Councilor Minderline and I and the CEO had a very interesting meeting. Kelvin. And they said that they were going to, I don't know how to phrase this, change their shift. Because right now, it's commonly known that they're not on call from 4 till 8 in the morning.
Correct, yeah.
And that they're going to change that, make those shifts less predictable.
Correct, yes.
And so I'm assuming that you are in communication then with Staff Sergeant here, that when he sets his shifts, you are then looking at your own shift. That's correct?
Correct, yes. And we will make sure that we try to cover any gaps in between that we obviously observe if such situation arises. That's all I have for an answer.
Oh, that's excellent response. The other thing that we got, and this actually came directly from the premier herself, and that is the importance of navigation services. By navigation services, she and her ministers who attended talked about municipalities providing in the large ones like Calgary, but the service coming out of those navigation centers, Councilor Chung, was very close to what you are already doing. That is linking people who are in need of our help with the appropriate social services. And as we just discussed, if you're doing that with social services in Frankfurt.
Correct, yes.
Correct? So I certainly commend you on that because that's exactly the thrust of part of the she mentioned at the rural, mentioned that also. So thank you for that. So if there are no other questions or comments, I entertain the motion from Deputy Mayor.
With that council receive the fees. November 2025 for further information. Questions or comments on the motion made by the deputy mayor? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Really looking forward to your next report.
Thank you. Hopefully it's better.
Thank you. It's 7:51. We're going to recess for 10 minutes, okay? I will come back together.